A few months ago, I received a call from an unknown number. At first, I thought it was someone calling by mistake, and I ignored it, but the calls continued. One day, I answered the phone and asked, "Who is this?" A man responded, "Are you curious about who I am? Everyone who knows my identity will die." I angrily responded, "Hey, and people who prank call me, I will also kill." But he ignored me and continued talking. "Come out to the front of your yard of your house at midnight. Then you will know who I am." I got annoyed, so I just hung up, but the calls kept coming. So I blocked the number. A few days later, I received a call from another unknown number, and I heard the same man's voice. I got angry and cussed him out. Then he said, "Do not be angry. If you get angry, you'll get cancer." His prank calls continued for weeks, and eventually, I got so angry that when he called one night, I immediately yelled at him, "I'm going to come to you right now, and I'm going to rip off all your fingers so you won't be able to dial the phone. Oh, calm down, the human body is precious. I'm in a white van on 5th Street. Come to me." The phone suddenly hung up. No matter how much I thought about who was making the prank call, no one came to mind. I was so angry that I decided to go see the guy and show him how scary my fists could be. I called my friends Carlos and Mason. It was at night, and these two, for a lack of better term, were tough guys, sturdy young men, if you know what I mean, who had nothing to fear. When we arrived on 5th Street, there was no one to be seen. But there in the middle of the street was parked a large white van. However, the tinted windows were so dark we couldn't see inside. We yelled at the van on "Get out of here," and that's when we got a call, and then I heard it, that familiar voice. "M3 precious items delivered to me." I could not be more happy right now. My friends, they went to the van, pressed the faces against the windows, and tried to look inside. At that moment, a window rolled down, and two muscular arms as thick as pumpkins appeared and hit Carlos and Mason in the face, causing them to fall backwards like helpless dolls. With a loud thud, they hit the ground, twisted like squids. Then the large man loaded Carlos and Mason into the van and drove off. Everything happened so quickly, as if it all happened within 3 seconds or so. I quickly called the police, but the van had no numbers on the license plate. The police searched for the van, but it was nowhere to be found. I was in a huge panic, and I was shaking uncontrollably all night long. The next day, I got another call from an unknown number. It was him. Oh, I was surprised the items were in better condition than I expected. Carlos has a crystal clean liver, and Mason has very hearty, healthy kidneys thanks to these. I earned $100,000. Now let's have a party. Come to me. You know, the place where we met yesterday. Come at 10 o'clock tonight. Your friends, they are still here, but a little indisposed, kind of having trouble breathing. I started crying. I swore at him, but then he hung up. I called the police and told them about the call and the location. Then at 10 p.m., I went back to 5th Street. However, the van that was there quickly sped off. As soon as the police came out, they took off and chased the van. A couple hours later, I got the call. It was him. Oh, I really want those prime organs of the policemen who are following me right now. I'm sure I can sell them all. A few days later, the police station contacted me. They told me that the police officers who had chased the van that day had gone missing. I was speechless. I was in shock. A few days later, I received a text message from an unknown number with a photo attached. In the photo, there were men lying on an operating table, and next to them were men wearing surgical gowns and masks, holding tens of thousands of dollars in an open briefcase. The message read, "Sold to police officers." I was so scared out of my mind, I begged my parents to move away right away. My parents, they also felt the seriousness of the situation, and so within weeks we moved away, and at the same time I changed my phone number. I was so relieved that I was now free from those calls from that man. But one day I saw a white van parked in front of the house I moved to. It was stopped there for some time, and then it drove off. The next day I went to view the spot where the van was standing, and there on the ground was a photograph. I picked it up to get a closer look. There in the photo were two unknown people, but written on the bottom of the pic was Carlos, and Mason saved 2 lives. The shock shook me to my core. A few weeks later, on the evening news, a report came. The organ harvesters had been caught. However, the bodies of Carlos and Mason were never found. Still, to this day, I continued to suffer from severe trauma. Luckily, the prank calls had stopped, but still the inner panic was always on 24 hours a day. 6 months have passed since the incident, But what is still scary is that a van without license plates still appears in front of my house from time to time. Every time that van appears, a rotten smell emanates within the air. Police continue to search for the vans. But with no luck and no clue of identities, I no longer leave the house without extreme fear of what could happen to. One day while I was eating dinner at home, I heard a knock on the door. When I went outside, I saw a middle-aged woman holding a small doll. There was something creepy about that doll. Its hair was a few short strands, its face was frowning and grotesque, and its skin was as realistic as a real person's skin. The lady looked at me and she screamed, "Give me something to eat, anything. I'm a veterinarian, so the only thing I can give you is bread. Would you like that too?" She nodded her head, and I brought her the bread. Then she snatched the bread and stuffed it into the mouth of the doll she was holding. The doll's mouth was quite large and seemed to have a lot of space inside. It was as if the bread was being sucked into it. I looked at her with a confused expression and she said, "She eats everything, she'll probably eat your face off too." Then she put her ear to her doll's mouth, and after a moment she suddenly said, "She wants meat. She says the bread is not delicious." I was horrified and just closed the door. Then she shouted from outside the door, "Babies need to eat protein to grow taller." A few days later, there was another knock on the door, and when I looked out the window, she was standing at my front door holding her doll. The doll looked different. It appeared to have grown in size, and its hair had grown longer. The frown was less prominent than before, but it was still a creepy face. I was unsure whether it was the same doll as before or a different doll, and I wanted to look at it more closely. I opened the door and handed her a sandwich. She fed the sandwich to her doll. I looked closely at the doll teeth that weren't there before had grown, and it looked as if the doll was chewing the sandwich. I thought to myself, is this a doll designed to have jaws that move automatically? Is it just my imagination? I felt an inexplicable, unpleasant feeling rush over me, and I closed the door. The president of the company that made that doll must have been controlled by an evil spirit. I muttered to myself as she continued to feed the doll outside the house. From that day on, she kept coming to my house, but I stopped answering the door because looking at that doll gave me goosebumps all day. After a few days, I was used to ignoring her knocks. Then one night, I woke up startled when I heard a child's angry voice outside the front door. I checked the time. It was 3 a.m., and I was irritated. I carefully looked out the window in the darkness. I saw the woman standing, holding the hand of a doll that was bigger than before. This time the doll was standing on the ground. The doll's face had a severe frown. The woman knocked on the door and screamed, "My child wants to eat soup with meat right now." Then she tried to open the window of my house. Damn, I'm a vegetarian. I was so angry that I screamed at her, and then she disappeared. The next day, as I was passing through the neighborhood, I noticed a police line had been placed on my neighbor's house. I asked a local resident standing there what was going on, and what he said was shocking. "You know, the woman who carries a doll and begs every day, she killed the man who lived in this house. However, the method of murder was, bit bizarre. The man's stomach was cut open with the doll's fingernails. The police said the doll's fingernails were sharp as knives. What's even more shocking is that she made suit with the flesh of the man's corpse. When the police asked why she did such a thing, she said that her baby's favorite food was human soup." He pointed to the doll that was lying at the scene as he explained the doll was so heavy that when the police cut open its stomach, they found a bunch of soup inside. However, they said there were things inside the doll's stomach that looked like intestines, and they were as realistic as real intestines. The police said they couldn't figure out where the doll was made. They said they had never seen such a doll in their lives, and then it was made of an unknown material other than plastic. I froze on the spot. I looked at the doll. It was bigger than when it came to my house the night before. Its hair was long and thick, its teeth and fingernails were like blades, and it had a faint smile on its face. I quickly returned home, and for several days I had terrible nightmares about the doll eating my flesh. I later learned the woman's story. She was homeless at the time, and someone had left the doll next to her, so she carried it around with her, thinking it was her baby. People thought she was crazy, but no one has figured out who made the doll, who gave it to her, or how it grew. If you are interested in this style of videos, be sure to subscribe to MEDLIYN's channel and like this video. Thankful. I'm Arjun, and this is my story. This happened a few months ago. I'm a guy just out of college and was searching for a job. During that time, I was living with my parents in one of the big cities in South India. My parents had to go out to meet a friend of theirs, leaving me alone in the house, and I was sort of spooked because the night before, I had watched one of the scariest horror movies. My house has 2 floors, my room, and the bathroom is upstairs. They left early, and I got ready to get into the shower. I had the weird habit of playing loud music when I take a bath, but this time my phone was low on battery, so I charged it and switched on YouTube to play music on my TV. Before I went into the bathroom, I flipped on the light switch, which was outside the room. A few minutes passed after I got in the shower. I was bathing and enjoying the music, when suddenly the bathroom light turns off. I ignored it, thinking it might be because of a power outage. But then my mind started to wonder, if this is a power outage, why the heck is the TV still playing music? I could feel knots in my stomach as I thought of the possible reasons why the light bulb went off. There was no way the problem was with the bulb because it was recently replaced. But then that meant someone had switched it off from outside. I got out of the shower, wrapped my towel around my waist, and had my hand on the doorknob when suddenly I heard the sound of the switch being flipped, and the light in the bathroom came back on. By this point, I was trembling in fear. I peeked out the door and shouted, "Hello, Mom, Dad. Are you guys back?" But there was no answer. Then I heard the sound of some plates being thrown down on the floor below from the kitchen. I reminded myself that I'm an adult now, and I gathered my courage and decided to go check what was happening. I let the music on the TV continue playing loudly for additional courage. Then I reached the top of the stairs. I slowly peeked from the top of the stairs to the floor below. There I saw some plates and utensils on the floor, but I couldn't see anyone. The rational part of my mind started coming up with explanations like that. It could have all been a coincidence once I'd been watching for a minute or so and couldn't see anyone. I walked down the remaining stairs, checked all through the floor, including the closets, and even made sure the back door to the house was locked. I was about to relax, thinking I was just getting paranoid, when suddenly the music playing upstairs stopped, and heavy footsteps started coming from the stairs like someone was walking down them. I couldn't just stand there and wait to see who it was, so I ran. I ran outside the house wearing just my towel and waited near the gate of my house without even my phone. Almost an hour later, my parents returned and I told them what happened, but obviously they thought I was just pranking them. When we went back into the house, I was alert, expecting an attack from anywhere, but nothing happened. Then my mom scolded me for being irresponsible and leaving the back door to the house open. I almost fainted when she said that, because I'm dead certain that it was locked when I was looking around earlier. To this day, I still wonder what would have happened if I had waited to see the person coming down the stairs. I never want to know the answer, because I'm sure something bad would have happened to me by whoever or whatever it was that turned off the bathroom light. This true scary workplace story occurred in the autumn of 2012 in Glasgow, Scotland. The light was fading as it was the evening, and there was a chill in the air. My 2 friends, let's call them Nim and Aisha, worked in a beauty salon in the West End area of the city, and were just closing up for the evening when a group of 3 men wearing ski masks came in, carrying blue shopping bags. The men were screaming and asking where the owner of the salon was, to which they both replied that they didn't know. Although both of the girls were scared, they thought the men seemed fairly amateurish. Then suddenly they pulled out hammers and silver duct tape. The men then marched Nim and Aisha to the back area of the salon, where they wrapped their hands and mouths with the duct tape. They then debated on what to do next, wait for the owner or leave. Thankfully, they decided on the latter, but not before they smashed the cash register and some mirrors with their hammers. Surprisingly, the men didn't actually steal anything. They then left the salon and left Nim and Aisha taped up and gagged out back. The girls struggled for quite a while to free themselves from the tape, but they eventually managed to use a pair of hairdressing scissors to free their hands and remove the duct tape from their mouths. The whole incident only realistically lasted for about 20 minutes, although for them it felt much longer. Thankfully, the girls were not hurt. However, they were both very shaken up for a long time after this, and the men were never caught. As far as they were aware, both of my friends quit the salon immediately following this, and they never found out what those men wanted with the owner. And they're grateful she wasn't there, as if she had been, things might have been much worse. If you are interested in this style of videos, be sure to subscribe to Madeline's channel and like this video. Thankful.